Hi, welcome to another episode of the TPF podcast. My name is Kris Simonich, and my partner here is Andrea Floyd. And on this podcast, we try to deconstruct, break down what the top performers in this business are doing. And today we have one of those top performers. Today we have Alex Gingold, co-founder of DonutNV franchise. Alex, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on. I think this is a unique brand. I'm excited to learn a little bit more about it, Alex. So, Alex, start back. Give us sort of the origin. What inspired you to start this business and how did it come together?
Absolutely, would love to. So we're going to rewind a bit to 2014. And in 2014, I was in the insurance industry at that time. I was on the personal lines and commercial lines insurance side and wasn't loving corporate America, believe it or not. And my partner and now wife, Amanda, was also in corporate America, but on the luxury management side of things. She worked in luxury retail for about 12 years, and I was in insurance for about 4 at that point. And we wanted to do something that would allow us to work together. Our schedules were really conflicting at that point. She was working nights and weekends. I was really working the 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. corporate America grind. We're making good money. We had benefits. Of course, that's always the big thing when you're getting into business for yourself is the benefits. And, we had some comfort, I guess you would say, but we knew long term that we weren't controlling our own destiny. And that was really what started pushing us in the direction of taking a look at how can we get into business for ourselves. And I've been an entrepreneur since age 12. I started a small eBay empire at 12 years old and really just had a number of other businesses. But during my teenage years, I also worked in a number of quick service industries. My first job at 13 was Subway sandwich and was a sandwich artist. And I really enjoyed the quick service aspect of serving customers, taking them through a process, watching them enjoy what I just made for them, and then sending them on their way. Now, with insurance, one of the biggest things that I battled was chargebacks and cancellations. And of course, prorated commissions came as part of that. And that was a very frustrating factor for me. Now, Amanda battled something very similar on the retail side with returns. And of course, that counted against her daily goals. So we both had similar frustrations, but we knew that if we had a product that customers enjoyed and they were happy with, not only would they be return customers, but we knew that we were going home with that money that we earned that day. So that really took us in the direction of looking at food and beverage. We've always been foodies. We love the food industry. I personally have always loved the food industry just from my early roots as a teenager. But in our spare time, we're constantly looking for new foods and discovering new places to go. And that really drove us to looking for restaurants and different possibilities of like pizzerias. And we liked the idea, but we love to travel. We love flexibility in our schedule. And although we looked at about 20 to 30 different potentially viable businesses, we didn't want to be locked into a brick and mortar location. So that was something for us that we said, this is cool in theory, but we also want flexibility. Ultimately, that led us to launching a kiosk at the Philadelphia Premium Outlet. So it was a very small 10 by 10 kiosk, and we had a little bit of flexibility with our hours there. And we knew that we could really staff it with 1 or 2 employees too if we wanted to get away. So we knew there was a lot more flexibility with that option. And about a year later, that's when we went mobile. And that just led to a whole new journey for us.
Alex, at the kiosk, was that donuts though? Did you start off with donuts?
It was donuts. So, but very simply, now going back to the roots, Memorial Day weekend, 2014, it's always been about making the donuts hot and fresh as our guests watch. That's a big part of what DonutNV is now. In 2014, that was cinnamony donuts. That's how we got started. And we were very simply cinnamon sugar, powdered sugar, and plain donuts paired with original plain lemonade. So as we grew, as we did market research up and down the East Coast in the coming years, that's where we decided to add some of the great flavors that we have today, like Oreo, Fruity Pebbles. We incorporated some others along the way. And that really was what pushed us to a rebrand in 2017 into 2018.
Okay. But you talked about kind of the decision-making funnel where first you decide you want to get into food, then you look at 20, 30 different options, decide you for sure want to do something mobile, food truck, kiosk, right? Um, okay. But even then, there's a lot of different things you could be serving. How do you pick donuts?
So we actually had a whiteboard in our first apartment. We had a 2-bedroom apartment, very modest, and on that whiteboard, we had found some used donut equipment on Craigslist at the time. So this definitely dates me a bit to 2014. And we came across this used equipment, and for us, mini donuts. I remember having them on the boardwalk, actually in Ocean City, New Jersey. As a teenager, and I think even probably before that, Amanda had some prior memories of having them in years past as well too. So we came across the equipment, we knew the product, and we also knew that donuts were an easily recognizable item, just like pizza and French fries. So just thinking back to, I was probably 7 or 8 years old, having mini donuts on the Ocean City, New Jersey boardwalk. I remember how addicting they were, but I also remember watching them being made. And I knew what the concept was. Going back to the whiteboard, we had broken down the math really down to the donut, literally down to the donut. And it was, how many donuts do we have to make in a day to pay our rent and to keep the business growing? And it was kind of a no brainer. And for us, the biggest thing, there's always something that pushes someone to get into business for themselves, or start a business, whatever that looks like. But for us, we knew the numbers were good, we knew the concept was good, and we were still on the fence. It was, do we move forward with this, or do we stay in our jobs and stay comfortable, right? And we went back and forth for about two or 3 weeks or so. And really, our turning point was, I was heading into an insurance appointment one morning, and Amanda called me and she said, "Hey, I just got fired." And I said, "So I guess we're doing donuts?" And she said, "Yep." And that's we literally, I think that was on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. We bought the equipment the following weekend, or that the next weekend there, and we were in business a couple weeks later. Hit some roadblocks in the beginning. Didn't really know what use and occupancy permits were. We knew what health permits were, but we didn't know all the intricacies of starting a business, and had some battles in the beginning. But we finally got opened a couple weeks after we had originally projected, and that was Memorial Day weekend of 2014.
That's awesome. That's so good. So, Alex, you kind of mentioned why you got into more of the mobile setting to this, but I mean, I think I've read that the food industry grows the food truck industry 10% year over year. So there's significant growth. Why do you think that's happening outside of just, wanting to take some vacations, like you mentioned, having more flexibility?
Flexibility is a huge part of it. And it's really cool for us to look back on the last 10 and a half years right now, and watch how the mobile space has grown. We've watched cash disappear in favor of credit cards over the last 10 years. So much has happened in 10 years. We literally got started Memorial Day 2014, and Square was just starting to kind of become a thing at that time. And, credit cards were maybe 10 or 20% of our business early on, where now, credit cards are probably 90% of the business, and you have the option to finance your donuts literally at checkout through the Square point of sale program. So it's crazy to watch the iteration of business over a period of time, 10 years in this case. But for us, when we went mobile August of 2015, that was still, food trucks were still trying to find their place. It was very early on. Roach coaches were, the staple food truck. And it wasn't, we're having a wedding, let's hire a high-end food truck. It wasn't, I want to have a food truck at my graduation party. It was, food trucks are kind of like the cheap option. And that was, we were able to work our way into festivals and fairs. But over that period of time, food trucks really became more of a staple, and there was a number of reasons for that. There's a lot. We could probably go on for about an hour at least just on that topic. But when we take a look, even back to 2020, COVID was a huge turning point. And what we personally saw in the company unit, which our company unit is based in southeastern Pennsylvania, right in the King of Prussia area, about 45 minutes north of Philly, we saw a lot of events that were previously indoors being forced outdoors, of course, because of everything that was happening during the pandemic. And there was a new focus on catering. Every year is so different year over year in business, but we saw a big emphasis on catering in 2020 and 2021. And then we saw even on wedding venues, wedding venues were so backed up for so many years that your traditional caterers weren't available. They were totally unavailable. They were booked, and food trucks were a great option, not only for availability, but also for budget purposes as well too. And I know a lot of times our trucks are booked because it's a great product. It's a great experience of getting to watch the donuts and the product being made hot and fresh, or cold and fresh in the case of the lemonade. But it's also, at a very desirable price point. Typically 8, 10, $12 per serving is, what we see on average.
That's great.
Alex, so if you can lay it out for me, you just mentioned some venues, right? If I can't find a caterer, food truck is a good option, et cetera. But as far as DonutNV's business model, kind of give me the buffet of what are the different types of events and venues that I can be bringing my DonutNV truck to and making money.
Yeah. So that's the beauty of the model, is you get to operate when and where you want, and you're not operating. That was the big seller for us personally. Even back to our kiosk days of working at the premium outlet centers, was we weren't working in a cubicle. We got to be outside. We got to, you were in the elements. You had some better days than others, of course, but you were outside. You got to you were always interacting with people. It was fun, as opposed to being locked up in an office in a cubicle. When we take a look at the event space, that was just a totally different world for us. And we had so much fun, because when we started to bring our units mobile, and we used to hit, we started to get into the fairs, the festivals, you're a part of the community, and people are starting to recognize you as the party expert. And that's really what differentiates a super successful franchisee from a more average franchisee in our business. Is, are you the party expert? Are you well known in your local market as the true party expert? But that was really what we were seeing on on that side of things. Was we were having fun with the events that we were at. And the events that we look for are public events, things like food truck festivals, fairs. Carnivals aren't a huge part of what we do, but I know just this week alone, I saw 2 of our franchisees are at some really big state fairs. So depending on the opportunity, it's all about vetting the opportunity, and we take our franchise partners through a flow chart as part of training to help them understand what events have the best chance of success, and which ones might be worth gambling on a little bit more than others. Then on the other side of things, in addition to public events, we also have our prepaid or our catering type events. So those are going to be events where you're usually going to be paid in advance by an event host to be part of that function. So you're talking weddings, graduation parties, possibly school events if there's a budget from the president's office, or student activities. So yeah, it really depends on what type of business you're targeting. The standard franchisee model is going to be a mix of both, typically 50-50. And some years you're a little bit heavier on the public events. Some years are a bit heavier on the private events. But as you grow your business, you really start building your recognition locally in your area, which leads more to those catering events and those opportunities.
So Alex, you're mentioning it's really important for that franchisee to be sort of out in the community, getting the name, image out there. But you have competition. You have a lot of food trucks. With us growing, that means there's a lot more opportunities out there, different types of food trucks. You also have sort of brick and mortar donut shops. And I don't know if they're competition. Tell us, how do you kind of stand out among whether it's the food trucks or the brick and mortars?
Yeah, so it all really comes down to the experience that we're providing, about being the party expert. So of course, on the product side, product is important. We've been told, I can't tell you how many times, probably hundreds, if not more of times, that we have the best donuts around. We truly believe that, because we went through a very thorough vetting process of the donut mix that we use. And we're very passionate. Like I said earlier, we're foodies. So we want a good product that when a customer eats it, they just melt from within. That's always been our focus. We want, we don't just want to throw product out the window and have it be okay. And a lot of the donut shops and businesses that you see these days, it's all about, how can we make this as cheap as possible? a lot of donut shops use frozen donuts, especially the big ones. And, we're all about that experience of watching the donuts being made hot and fresh behind our Watch the Donuts window. So you're getting that fully interactive experience. I know personally, I like to watch where my food is made. So being in an open kitchen concept is big so that you can see that the operation is clean. So our Watch the Donuts window is about 30 inches in diameter. And that allows our customers to not only see the donuts being made, they can see the lemonade being squeezed, the lemons being squeezed for the lemonade, I should say, the coffee being brewed, and you can see that it's a clean environment. So that's really important to us. Of course, we have quote unquote competitors, in the mobile space. You're competing for business on a mobile side. You can always argue there's competitors in the donut space, but the way we deliver our product is very unique. We're very proud of the delivery of what we do. And, that really goes into the vetting of the franchise partners that we bring on too, because we want people that can truly embody being party experts. We want people that show up excited to your graduation party, your bar mitzvah, your wedding, your high school fundraiser. That is so important to us, that we have the right people on the streets all across the country. And that was really what drove us to decide to franchise many years ago, really back in 2016, 17, into officially franchising in 2018 into 2019 was, why are we going to franchise? And we wanted to franchise to have that local presence and honestly, that local smile in communities all across the country. And now we're represented in 31 states.
Yeah, it's funny because you think about some of the things people get out their ice cream trucks. There's only there's ice cream everywhere and it doesn't smell. You don't have that interactive experience. And so I always say to clients, I think this is different. You pull up and it gives you kind of that flair where someone still wants something sweet potentially, but at the same time, they're smelling it. It's different, it's unique, and not just kind of traditional ice cream. And you can do it more months a year than an ice cream can go. So I think
You can.
that's good.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that we're mini, that's a big part of it too. I mean, I
Yeah.
can't tell you, we ran operations personally for about 8.5, 9 years making the donuts, and we still make the donuts, but usually more so on a training side now. But I can't tell you how many times we've heard, oh, I'm on a diet. I feel guilty about it, about having donuts, but they're mini, they're bite size. You pop one, and of course, one leads to two, to six, to a dozen, to a bucket. But they're pretty much guilt free, or as guilt free as you can get, and of course, they're fat free in the middle too, so that always helps.
Nice.
Yeah. There
Nice.
you go.
So let's stay on this topic, but let's bring it more into the business side of things. So what is the menu now? I know it's really minimal, it's really lean. And so kind of talked about what the menu is now and then how, because of that minimal nature of the menu, how that impacts the business as far as it gives it. What I always talk to folks about is that this seems to be such an advantage compared to a food truck that has to make lots of different kinds of tacos, or this is very to the point. And I think there's a whole bunch of operational advantages that start with the menu, but then kind of permeate outwards. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, there's a ton of advantages especially compared to brick and mortar, but definitely compared to fellow food trucks as well too. And we're the biggest advocates for the food truck industry as a whole. Just to note, one of the most surprising things that we tell our franchisees is fellow food trucks actually typically become your best referral source. So, it's really about community and not competition. That's a big part of success in our industry. But when we take a look at the menu, our menu is all about simplicity, and it's about keeping it simple so that a customer can really work their way through their menu, even with our guidance. And we can, from the time an order is placed to the time that order goes out the window, you're typically looking at about a 45-second serve time or less.
Wow.
So we accomplish that with a very simple menu. So we're talking hot mini donuts served by the bag, box, or bucket. So we serve our bags either by the half dozen or the dozen. Now we believe in a baker's half dozen or dozen because our company motto, it's all about surprise and delight. So we want, you'd be surprised how many people actually count their donuts. And when you order a half dozen and you get 7 in your bag, that goes a long way. So that's a big part of our marketing strategy, is that surprise and delight model. But we're half dozen and dozen on our bags. we're 24 in our boxes, which are great for catering. And then our bucket is typically sold as 36, but it's usually about 40 plus donuts, and they're stacked nice and high. It's a great social media piece as well too. There's always a lot of attention around the buckets as they go out the window. We pair our donuts. Now they are all a vanilla cake donut. They're all mini, but what makes them different is going to be the toppings. So we keep our selection pretty narrow to help our guests choose toppings pretty quickly. And usually we'll have about 6 to 8 toppings at any given time. And then we have a flavor of the month each month as well that changes. So we're always giving our customers something to keep coming back for, trying the new flavor of the month. We have some really great we always have great toppings, but the fall season and the winter season coming up are going to be, we have some real winners coming out. So definitely stop by a local DonutNV truck and check out your flavor of the month, or follow us on social media to see, what that current flavor is. Now we pair our donuts with fresh squeezed lemonade. So we're all about fresh squeezed. You'd be surprised how hard it is to actually find something that is fresh made these days. Everything's about the penny, saving pennies, saving dollars. And that's important in a business. But there's also value to a premium product that's made fresh. And we found that consumers are willing to pay for a premium product if it is fresh and it's not from concentrate. And our lemonade recipe is simply lemon juice, sugar, and water. And of course, we can make that sugar free, or we can make it diet on a request too. In addition to our lemonade, we do serve original, but also 6 fruit flavors plus a seasonal flavor. And then we seasonally change up with hot cocoa, warm apple cider, and hot and iced coffee. So all of our beverages are always available for prepaid catering events. The staple items for our public events are going to be the donuts and the lemonade. And then we do also have some alternate fresh squeezed beverages like our orangeade and limeade that can be rotated in place of lemonade in case there's a conflict with an exclusive by another vendor on lemonade at an event.
That's great. That's great. So let's talk a little bit about the franchisee. So one of the benefits of this model is the flexibility. So talk to me about how that works. They can have a job, they can do this on the side. What are most of the franchisees doing?
Yeah, so we see a pretty even mix between owner operator and semi-absentee, which I always like to clarify is managing the manager. That's so important to understand that if you are in business, if you're running your own business, you're involved in the business. Unless you're getting into a fully absentee model, even then you still probably want some involvement. But we are fully absentee really isn't our thing. It's owner operator and managing your manager. So those are the two categories we focus on. We see a pretty even split between the two. And we have franchisees that range from very part-time weekend warriors that do events, a couple times a month in the in seasons. So your spring, summer, fall period. We have franchisees that are running 2, 3, 4 events a day year round. And, results show both ways from that. So, we do publish an item 19. Our item 19 definitely depicts just that. You see franchisees ranging from, the $30,000, $40,000 a year range all the way up to the $200,000 plus range.
That's great.
So one thing I've always been interested in knowing more is, like, if I'm the owner of a DonutNV franchise, how do I get booked into these events? Is it hard? Do I have to sell myself? Is it as easy as just signing up for an event? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways to go about it. Many times when you take a look at public events, you're paying a fee or giving a donation, a percentage of sales to be a part of those events. So it's not so much I wouldn't say it's difficult to source events in quantity. As you become a more experienced operator and franchisee, it's sourcing the right events and making sure you're using your time to the best and highest, of your ability. So, year one is always a building year in any business, and we go through training. We help our franchise partners to understand what questions to ask to give themselves the best chance of success as they talk to event organizers. And of course, from that, they're going to learn what works, what's not working so well, or what events, they definitely want to be part of or not in the following years to come. When we take a look at the catering side of things, we're typically doing prepaid events where that's guaranteed dollars. So as much as possible, the catering events are a great focus. And if you can build a relationship with a local college, with local distribution centers that have employee or customer appreciation days, that can be a great avenue to really focus the business on. Again, it's all about being really the local mayor of your town. It's about being known as the party expert. We do have a corporate partnership with BNI, so Business Networking International, and that really puts the focus on making sure our franchise partners are focused on networking and knowing that this isn't, at the end of the day, we make a great product, great donuts, great lemonade. This is a sales and marketing role. We want you to be, fully focused on marketing your business and, selling the experience of what DonutNV has to offer.
That's great. Alex, another question on the business to kind of round this out a little bit is you focused on a trailer versus a 2-truck. Even though we're calling it a food truck, it's a little bit different, right? And tell us a little bit about that and how you're manufacturing them.
Yeah. So when we, again, taking a step back to 2014, we really took a look at truck versus trailer for probably about a 6-month period. And trucks were and are, of course, it's food truck. No one ever really says food trailer. But when we made that decision, we ultimately did it, one, to keep costs down initially, but also, two, we knew that if that tow vehicle broke down, we'd have the ability to go and rent a replacement vehicle same day and not lose an event. So that's always really been a big part of the strategy to continue in the trailer direction. Now, we may have some things coming out on the truck side as technology evolves and changes. That's opened up the doors, especially on the electric side of things. So we will have some exciting announcements coming in the next a couple months or so that we're really, really pumped to be announcing. But, our focus has been on trailers. It continues to be on trailers. But we always also want to offer our franchisees alternate options to best run their business, especially because every territory is a bit different in what's required. But on the trailer side, we are very proud that we actually produce all of the trailers. We manufacture our own trailers in-house, and we do that from the axles up. So we actually do it in southern Georgia. We started doing that in early 2023, and that allowed us to really ensure that the relationship with our franchisees could be as strong as possible. And when we worked with third parties, we saw warranties consistently being either declined or just ignored, even though they were paid for. And when we look at the franchise relationship, the franchisee-franchisor relationship, that's a 10+ year relationship. With DonutNV, with most franchise concepts will typically be at least 10 years. And, if your main vehicle of making money in operation, which in this case literally is a vehicle, a trailer, has issues and has breakdowns and can't be supported, that's going to cause a strong pain point for your franchise partners. And we say partners very literally because we're in business together. If our franchise partners do well, we continue to grow as a company. So by taking that in-house, that allowed us to have full autonomy of the warranty, making sure that anything that a franchisee could be resolved as quickly as possible. It also gave us full autonomy to the design of that unit to make sure that parts could be replaced quickly if needed. We've seen it's kind of like the farmer's commercial. We've seen a thing or two we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. I could give you an example of just about anything, good or bad. So we've been very intentional in the design process to make sure that if something happens, you're not down and out of business for months. It's a lot of times it's a replacement same day, next day, if at most, usually a couple days. So we've been very intentional about that process. But that's been one of the biggest parts of the DonutNV evolution, was bringing that manufacturing in-house, having a great team that can stand behind the trailers we produce, and ultimately making sure that we have quality units on the road across the country.
Awesome. Hey, Alex, we're going to wrap this up with 2 rapid fire questions. And so the first question is not specific to DonutNV. This is more about you, 10 years of entrepreneurial experience, franchising experience. If you could give one piece of advice to somebody who is seriously looking at franchises, any kind of franchise, but they're really seriously contemplating it, what advice would you give them?
It's a great question, not only for franchises, but also business ownership in general. Make sure that anyone that's going to be involved in your business is fully committed, the same as you are. If you're going to have a partner, whether that's a business partner in traditional sense, if that's going to be a spouse, a friend, family member, someone else, maybe a child, you're getting into business with your son or daughter, make sure that they are fully committed. And you're making an investment, whether that's $1, $1 million, $10 million, whatever that investment level looks like in your business or the business that you're considering getting in. Make sure everyone's fully committed. And if not, that's a very painful pain point, not only from a business aspect but from a personal aspect. And fortunately, we don't see it too often. But when we do see it, it's frustrating for us to watch, because it impacts on a personal side of things as well.
Yeah, no, I've seen it as well. Great advice. And so, what do you say to a person who they've taken the plunge? They're in their first year of business, first year of a franchise, again, whatever business it is, but they're in the thick of it. What would you tell that person?
Keep going. No matter how good you're doing in year one, you got to keep pushing. You're pushing a snowball up a hill, and you're constantly pushing it. You're getting into the first couple weeks, getting through year one. Year one's always the hardest in any business, DonutNV or not. So whatever business you're in, just keep pushing. And it might feel like the end is never in sight, of you're never going to hit your goals, but I can guarantee you it will come at some point. That might be in month 3. We see that, and people hit their goals extremely quickly, and that's awesome. And they grow and they expand, and they add 2, 3, 4. I've seen 4 trailers added in the course of 2 months, actually. So it's really cool to watch that success. It's just as rewarding, though, to watch those that maybe had a slower start in year 1 or even year 2 into year 3, and then they really start realizing success maybe by year 3 or 4 or even year 5. As an entrepreneur, you never really feel accomplished or finished. I know I can say that myself. It's always waking up fresh every morning, and what are we doing today? Let's get back at it, and just continuing to keep pushing that ball forward, and growing your business and keep doing great things.
That's awesome. Thanks for that advice. Appreciate it. Alex, it's been great having you on. I think, traditionally we have sort of different types of business models. We have the service industry, we have the brick and mortar. You're kind of coming in the middle. You have a little mix of both. And I think in this really fast growing area where you're coming in a simple model, something that people really want, you're building that experience. And I think that really resonates with a lot of people. And I can see where franchisees coming in just really could be successful and really buying into that model and focusing on it. I think it'll be great. So thank you so much for coming on today. We were glad you came on. If you're thinking about franchising, remember, while there's no one size fits all, the perfect franchise is definitely out there for you. To explore your options, visit theperfectfranchise.com by clicking on Let's Talk to schedule time with one of the consultants on the Perfect Franchise team. We look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. Until then, take care.